it's Sandy Wyllie. Welcome to my mental health channel, Inside My Holes, where I wipe away the stigma of mental illness by talking about my own personal struggles, having borderline personality disorder. I talk about my struggles having post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety and panic attacks, depression. I talk about my narcissistic mother and my traumatic upbringing, abusive upbringing, my schizophrenic father, my unethical psychologist who sexually abused me, all the therapies I've been in, and a plethora of other mental health related topics. But I only come on as a former patient of almost 20 years. I am not a licensed therapist. I do not hold a degree in psychology, so I cannot diagnose you or give you a professional opinion. And all I ask in return of you is your kindness and respect in the comments. Please be kind to me and to other people who comment. We don't need to agree on everything, but we do need to agree on showing each other respect and kindness always. If you are new to my channel, welcome! It's 100% free. So subscribe, hit that subscribe button, that lower box on the right hand corner that says subscribe. If you like what you see, give it a thumbs up. Now today we're going to talk about, am I an empath? What is an empath? Do you feel overlooked, misunderstood, and undervalued? Are you very hypersensitive and intuitive? Do you put other people's needs first? Do you avoid conflict at all costs? Do you act like a therapist to all your friends and family? Are you the one that they come to when they have a problem? And it's been years with me to all of that. So I realized today that I am an empath. My former friends, I said in other videos, they used to call me Dr. Phil. They would call me morning, noon, and night. They'd call me when I'm working. They'd come to my place of work and just unload all their problems. So let's talk a little bit about empaths and how I am an empath and how it's impacted my life being an empath. First of all, empaths are highly insightful and intuitive. And I'm going to give you a good example of how I was highly insightful and intuitive. Every therapist I've been to said I was very insightful. Well, when I feel very close to someone, and I'm not talking about romantic relationships only. I'm talking about any relationship where I feel very close to people, and I usually have felt very close to my therapist. I become psychic almost. I'm not kidding you. I went to this therapist for 2 years. His name was Dr. Eugene Pagani. He was in Newton. This is the therapist, if you look on my other videos or have read my books, that kicked me out of therapy after 2 years in an email telling me he couldn't work with me anymore. This is that therapist. He knew all about the ones who sexually abused me. I talked to him about that. Well, I don't know how long it'd been. Maybe after a year or around a year of therapy with him, I was feeling very close to him. And I started, losing sleep over him, worrying about him. And I couldn't understand, why am I worried about him? It doesn't make any sense. Why am I losing sleep? And then one night, I often had insomnia. I lied there and I said, wait a minute. Dr. Pagani has cancer. And then I thought, I got more deeper inside myself because I'm lying awake at night worrying about the psychologist and I have no idea why I'm worrying about him. Then I said, he has prostate cancer. Now, how did I know this? He never said a word, swear to God. Never told me a thing. He was a very private man, unlike my other therapists. And you know who I'm talking about if you watch my other videos. He never told me a thing. He never talked about himself. So how would I know this? So the next session I went in and I said, I've been worried about you. And he said, why? And I said, well, I don't know why I'm thinking this. I really don't. But I'm worried. I fear you have prostate cancer. And you know what he said to me? He said, I do. I was shocked. Like, how could I know this man? He looked healthy, okay? He didn't look like a sickly, frail. Sometimes you can tell when someone is sick because they're very frail looking. First of all, how did I know he had cancer? Second of all, how did I know what type of cancer he had? I said, I have fears and premonitions that you have prostate cancer. And he said, I do. I have it. That's just how insightful and intuitive empaths can be. And I was up worried every night. I had insomnia over him because after a year of therapy, I felt attached to him. There's no way you cannot get attached in therapy. I'm telling you. You're in an intimate environment, closed off in a secluded room, one-on-one with a person who is paid to listen, and you're spilling out your heart and soul. It's very conducive for the environment it's in, and the role of the therapist is very conducive that you would become extremely attached. So that's how that's a very strong indicator, being insightful and intuitive, that I am an empath. And the other indicator, the second one I told you about, is my friends called me Dr. Phil. Everyone came to me with their problems and treated me as a therapist. That's the second reason I know. Here's another reason I know I'm an empath. I avoid conflict at all costs, okay? With my best friend Holly, I didn't speak up when I should have spoken up, and I've mentioned these things in the things she did in the relationship. That didn't value my time by always coming late, hours and hours late, or canceling plans at the last minute. And I never spoke up. I didn't want the conflict. And this is another, sign that I'm an empath, trying to make peace, trying to keep the peace, because I grew up in a house full of chaos. As you've seen in my other videos, I don't want to repeat myself. My mother was narcissistic and abused me. My father was schizophrenic and in and out of mental hospitals. He was delusional. He was psychotic. He heard voices. He had fitful rages where both my parents were. My mother would throw things, swear, scream, claw my father. She physically abused my father. She would beat him up and claw him until his arms were bleeding. So I grew up in chaos. So because of that chaos, I become an extreme empath. And one of the signs of an empath is avoiding conflict, trying to keep the peace in relationships. Another thing I do is I self-isolate. As you all know, I have no friends. Why do I self-isolate? Because when you are an empath, you will burn out. I burn out because you know how much emotion it takes to be an empath? Do you know how much that you have to be engrossed, to be fully submerged into someone's problems, okay? Fully submerged. It's like jumping in the water and putting your head under the water, all right? And keeping it there, being fully submerged in water. If you're fully submerged in water, your head's underwater. After so long, you can't breathe. You have to come up for air, otherwise you'll die. And this is the only example that I can think of for myself. That's why I need to self-isolate for my own sanity. Because when I'm with people, the closer I am to people, I fully submerge in their problems. And it feels like my head is underwater. And if I stay underwater that long with my head underwater, I can't breathe. It's like I'm gasping for air. And that's why, empaths, like, they take on all the burdens of everyone. That's what I do. I take on all the burdens of people I shouldn't, right? And then, I feel like, I'm overwhelmed. I have severe anxiety. I have panic attacks. I have depression and I feel I'm suffocating. I'm drowning. That's the word. I'm drowning in other people's problems. Like with my my long-term psychologist, that Dr. Richard Geist, said I have a complaint: sexual abuse, emotional abuse. I have an ongoing complaint. It's still under investigation after a year and a half with. He called me at 10 o'clock at night and he told me his wife has breast cancer. Now, he should never be calling me, telling me personal problems. There's something really wrong with that. I had a whole video, the red flags, what to watch out for in therapy. I hope you watch that video. It's very, very important. But your therapist should never, ever tell you their problems. They shouldn't be calling you at all, let alone at 10 o'clock at night, telling you their problems. You're paying them. I'm paying him. I'm his patient. Well, anyway, when he told me that, this is how I reacted. Most people, I'm not, I wasn't a friend of his, or, I didn't know his wife at all. It wasn't like I was friends with her or friends with the family or, anything like that. I just broke down, like my body broke. I told my husband, and of course I was up all night. My body was shaking, convulsing like this. I'm not kidding you. My body was shaking. I had the shakes really bad. I was crying. I couldn't sleep. This is not what a therapist is supposed to do. A therapist is not supposed to burden their patients with their problems. But if I wasn't an empath, what would be a reaction? Even if I was a nice person, not narcissistic or anything, I would say, oh, that's terrible. I'm so sorry. You'd feel bad, right? But an empath doesn't just feel bad. They take it on. They take the person's problem on. It's on my shoulders, So that problem, it was like I was diagnosed with breast cancer. That's how I felt when he told me his wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, which he shouldn't have. That was being unethical, dumping his problems onto me. It was like someone told me that I have breast cancer. That's the reaction. That's the bodily reaction. That's the bodily reaction that I had. I was shaking like a leaf. I was, bawling my eyes. I was up with insomnia all night. I kept my husband up. My husband was holding me and trying to comfort me. Now, why should he be trying to comfort his wife over his therapist's problems? It wasn't my problems. But see, I take on. This is what an empath does. They take on other people's problems, even people that aren't family, even people that aren't friends. His wife was not my family. His wife was not my friend. He wasn't my friend. He wasn't my family. I didn't even know the woman. I might have saw her once or twice in passing. I didn't even know her. What it is, is sensory overload. This is how empaths, that's just a perfect example of myself having sensory overload. My whole body was reacting. My stomach was in knots. My body was shaking. It's sensory overload. Your body is reacting. Now, another thing empaths have, this is the last one that I can think of myself, is they have no clear boundaries. What that means is, and the example I already gave is when I was working, I should have told my friends, hey, you know what, Linda? You know what, Holly? I would love to hear what's going on. And I really feel bad what you're going through, whatever the problem was at the time. But, I'm at work. I can't talk. I got to do my job. I'll get in trouble for talking. But no, I didn't do that. I didn't say that. I listened and tried to do my job at the same time. I didn't speak up. I had no boundaries. I can give you a gazillion examples of how I had no boundaries being an empath. One time, me and my husband went to this conference for autism. Our handicapped son, who has traumatic brain injury, also, he was autistic. When we found out at 2 years old he was autistic. So we used to go to conferences, and this one, this one guy, I don't know how old he was, so I don't know if he was a teenager or what, but this one guy who was autistic was at that conference, and he came over to me and introduced himself, and then he took my hand. Now, he didn't just take my hand and shake it. He squeezed the life out of my hand. I mean, my hand was like this, gnarled. And I let him do it because I was so empathic. I didn't want to push him away. I didn't want him to feel abandoned or rejected by me. And I know he was autistic, and autistic people aren't aware of, social norms. Like, he wasn't aware that he's really hurting me, So I'm gritting my teeth, smiling at him, while he's like, I'm not kidding, he was mangling my hand, because he's autistic. He wasn't aware of what he was doing. And like I said, I didn't want to push him away. I didn't want him to feel, rejected in any way. So I stood there and smiled, and I let him hold and he didn't hold, he mangled my hand. And then when I think whoever he was with said, oh, okay, yeah, we gotta go now, bye. And I was in some serious, serious pain. Here's another example of how I was an empath. There was this guy who had traumatic brain injury, just like my son, in West Roxbury. His name is Jimmy. I befriended him because, I felt bad. No woman would talk to him. He had mangled speech. He had a speech impediment, so he didn't speak very clearly. And I took him over my house. Also, he was paralyzed on one side of his body, and he was in a wheelchair. I had him over my house. I befriended him. I cut his nails because he couldn't cut his own nails because he was, one side of his body was completely lame. He couldn't use one side of his body. And, his hands was twisted in like that. And he would ask for a hug and a kiss. And I didn't have any boundaries. I didn't romantically kiss him, but he wanted a kiss on the lips. He wanted affection from an attractive woman. I was not attracted to him at all, but I felt bad, and I understood that he was, he still had those feelings a man feels, even though he was crippled in a wheelchair with traumatic brain injury. He still had those feelings that men get amorous feelings for a woman. And I should have said, no, Jimmy, I'm not going to kiss you. I'll give you a hug. But I didn't know how to shut it off. I didn't know how to, make clear boundaries. And that was because I was such an empath that I had no boundaries. I let people walk all over me, So these are the ways that, I was an empath, and it really took its toll on me. I really got burnt out, and I really felt used. And my anxiety went through the roof, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I had to start making some boundaries. I had to start respecting myself, my personal space. I had to start knowing my limits, and I had to be able to say no, and I had to be able to shut people off, and I had to come up from here. I couldn't let myself be submerged anymore in people's problems, because it was affecting my life. It was affecting me, physically, and it was affecting my mental health. And that's where it has to stop, right there. I gotta think of my own physical and mental health. I can't put other people above myself, That's just not good for mental health, unless it's your child. Parents do often put their children before themselves, but that's your child. I'm not talking about your child. All right, let me know if you're an empath, or or how it's been, or if you know someone who's an empath and what toll it's taken on their life. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your comments. I always appreciate when people comment, and I will, unless I get hundreds of comments, which hasn't happened yet. I will always respect and show kindness, and comment back to you at all times. All right, let me know if there's something you want to talk about, or let's keep this conversation going, and let's talk about empaths. Until next time, have a great day.